Hello, welcome to It's All Cobblers to Me. Did something happen today? I don't know why we're here, do you? I love this. I understand that Danny's got some potentially breaking news.
Do Charles? Keith Curle's been sacked.
What?
What? I was just coming in here for the Burton preview show, but we might as well talk about that, right?
Shall we just do the Burton preview show instead?
Just as if nothing's happened.
Nothing else has happened. Thank you very much for joining us. Whether you're watching us live right now, we are on Twitter, Facebook, and our YouTube channel right now as I speak, or you might be listening back on our podcast feed. If so, thank you very much for pressing play and listening to It's All Cobblers to Me. There are 60 people watching right now. It's amazing what happens when big news comes out of Sixfields, isn't it, guys?
The biggest thing from that is we've got our own YouTube channel.
We do have our own YouTube.
Did you not know that?
I didn't know that.
Amazing.
To be fair, guys, I used it for the Patreon stuff. So when we did all the interviews with people like Rico, who is now what? Co-assistant manager, would you say? And who else did we do? J-Bone Cresser. All of those that were recorded on Zoom were basically there for the Patreon members to watch in full. So that's all it was there for. They're not public videos, they're just there. But this is now live on YouTube, Facebook and Twitter. So evening. If you've not ever listened to us or seen us before, my name's Charles. We've got Jeffy. Wave Jeffy madly. Lovely. There she is. Coming to us live from Watch It in Somerset. There is a beardless Danny.
It's still there. Still a little bit.
I wouldn't call that a beard.
It got to Brian Blessed levels, so I just had to shave it all off.
I feel like this is off the back of our conversation we had on the normal pod on Sunday, Danny.
Yeah, very much
about crushes with beards, and then suddenly you're not got a beard.
I've just gone and put mine on mine. Sent it in the post.
Coming to us live from Bristol. Obviously, Danny is the sacking king because Bristol Rovers also sacked their manager today. I'm blaming Danny.
I'm going to be promoting Keith Curle as an option to Bristol Rovers over the next few days.
Can we just point out that Danny isn't responsible for the sacking of managers? Poor form would probably be further up the list than Danny.
No, we'll get to that. We'll get to that, I'm sure. And also, there is looking resplendent in his lovely beanie hat there. Is it a 49ers hat that you're wearing by any chance there, Neil? It is. The one and only Neil Edgerton Scott. Thank you very much, everybody, for being here for what is technically classed as Emergency Pod. Quick!
Everyone panic.
Everybody panic!
You say that, but we pretty much did around 3 or 4 hours ago when it started. We were like, what are we going to do?
We did. We genuinely did.
Check this out, by the way. We can see where people are commenting from. This is fun.
I know, yeah. There's loads of people watching on Facebook.
Technology is just too much for me.
Technology's too much for you. I've only got one tab.
Yeah, you will notice in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen, we do have a special hashtag for tonight. It is hashtag by BDK.
Do you want to finally explain the BDK thing, Charles?
Shall we finally explain it now that he's no longer our manager? I think it was Neil that came up with the nickname in full. I think so. If it wasn't, I'm definitely blaming you. Yeah, we all look. Let's actually start properly. So obviously, if you are tuning in, I'm sure that you know this news already. But if for some reason you have been under a rock or really busy at work today and you've not had access to social media whatsoever, or indeed the Cobblers website, then today Keith Curle was relieved of his duties as manager of Northampton Town, and along with Colin West was shown the door.
Just seen Stu's. Just sit and look at the.
We will.
Oh, that's brilliant.
We will get to obviously what's going to happen next, or what is happening next. a little bit later on. But to start off with, there's loads of people watching. I'm really loving it. If you can all, especially if you're watching on Facebook, if you can all click that like button, that would be amazing. Show us some love. YouTubers say that all the time, don't they? I feel like a YouTuber today. So there we go.
So hip, Charles.
I'm sorry, I'm such a millennial. Apologies to Matt Salmons, who is watching.
Charles, if we're YouTubers now, can you take us all to Dubai?
Oh, I don't know. Is that allowed?
No, but they seem to all do it.
Oh, right. Well, in that case, yes.
Charles, does mean you're going to be on Strictly next year now as well?
Dancing on ice, I think you'll find.
Dancing on ice, everyone gets hurt. Yeah. Everybody gets hurt on Dancing on Ice.
It was last night, wasn't it? Dancing on Ice was last night, I think, wasn't it?
Only
PTS.
People fall over. Well done, Danny. Lovely dad joke. Straight in there within the first 7 minutes.
More of what's to come.
Look, let's start off the conversation. I want to actually begin by first of all saying that everything that we're going to pretty much talk about tonight is a reflection on what has happened over the last 6 months, let's say, essentially on the pitch. It has got nothing to do with any particular person or people as human beings or anything like that. So just to get that in straight away, our opinions are purely based on the football and basically I suppose in a way, the ability to do the job that was being tasked with. So let's start off and go around this wonderful table of Cobblers to Me hosts and ask the first question. I know the answer. Right decision?
Yeah.
You think?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was fully prepared to come on tonight in the Burton preview show and just I'd had a huge rant ready from last night, and I'm sad that I'm not going to be able to deliver it properly. But yeah, it's completely the right time, absolutely the right time.
I actually think it's probably too late. It's not too late to save the season, but I actually think it should have happened sooner. I understand fans are more knee-jerk than kind of club owners generally, aren't they? So I kind of understand a little bit that Kelvin Thomas and his gang took a little bit longer than perhaps some of us would have liked. I struggle to understand a little bit the thought process of giving him the transfer window and then sacking him pretty much a week after it closed. It just doesn't make much sense to me. So if I don't think you get to the point of like last night's game being the kind of not even thinking about sacking him, then last night game's happening and then thinking, right, we're going to have to sack him. It must have already been in their thought process earlier on down the line.
I think it was in December after the 4-0s when he was talking about January, when he was talking about the plans, and he had to come out and kind of, when he chatted to us, to reassure him that Curle was still as part of the plan, because it got to that point where everyone's questioning it. But it would have been nice to have January, to have the window still. But at least he cleared out some dead wood.
Yeah, I do think. I was talking to Sean about it earlier. Actually, I do think that, and he agrees. There's some players in there, but I think the general consensus for us as fans is generally that they're frightened to death to do anything wrong, and therefore haven't got any freedom. And it's panic ball, isn't it? All the time, it's not thought out play, which we've said our time and time again. And I think the problem last night is that I think the general consensus before last night was that he should go, but the ones that had always kept the faith and said, oh, it'll be all right, he can turn it around, he's a decent manager, kind of just went, no, he's got to go. And, the most faithful amongst us said that. And I think once it gets to that point, it's a downhill spiral by then.
Do you know the thing that really annoys me about all of this, right, is that the people who have been saying that, all along that he needs to go now have their thing. I noticed a couple of people basically turn around and put messages on, whether it be on Facebook or whether it be on Twitter, essentially replying to people that have been a bit like us, I would say, fairly staunch supporters and wanting him to succeed and maybe going, maybe buying into it a little bit too much, but essentially doing that whole almost like either told you so kind of response, or I think I actually saw somebody reply to somebody who had put on saying, no, it's time for him to go. And this was before I think the sacking had been announced, but saying, yeah, it's time. I think it's time for him to go. And the reply that was given was essentially to sort of go, well, what happened to this? Or why are you now? Oh, I see. Now you've come over to our side of things. You told you it was right. And it's just like, I don't like that. I really don't. And I think it's unfair. I think for us, look, we'll have our critics, and that's absolutely fine, where we're maybe told that we're too close to the club or whatever, things like that. I've got no problem with people thinking that. But at the same time, there is definitely an element for me because of that relationship that we've all had with Keith. You know, we've all been able to speak to him. We've all done it at least twice since he's been at the club, if not more times. You know, it's difficult to not want somebody to succeed. And even when it is not going right and it's going wrong. But I really don't like the whole I told you so kind of thing. And that's what actually hurts more for me, is the fact that I didn't want this to happen. I didn't want him to... I don't even necessarily say that he failed. I mean, ultimately, of course, he didn't succeed for this season.
He did fail.
Well, yeah, but look at what he achieved in terms of, he took over the club, what were we, 22nd in League Two? And in his first of all, he stopped the rot. He stopped us from having any fear of relegation to the conference. And then in his first full season, okay, fine, COVID, all of that sort of stuff. But the record books will show a promotion. And he did get the club promoted. I still look at it and go, that's great. Now you can, you know, I'm sure that there will be arguments that COVID was part of the problem. He openly admitted that he didn't get every first target in the summer. You know, there's going to be an element of the shitstorm that has been the world in the past 12 months that may well have had something to do with it. The one thing for me, though, that I can't get away from is the fact that, especially if you look at it last night, just how poor it is and how obvious it is that it's not going right, if that makes sense. And I actually wonder whether part of the kind of coming around of a lot of people, including us, was down to the fact, or partly down to Luke Graham's co-commentary, because he was just so, honest and open and clear and concise about what he was saying in regards to the way that the team were playing and how bad it was. And I think once you've got somebody that is a bit more of an outsider, i.e. he's not been somebody that's been watching every single week as a co-commentator or in the media like us or anything like that, when he turns around and says it's rubbish, then maybe you sit up and you take notice.
I think he was very measured, wasn't he? He was really honest, and I think he didn't criticize overly either. He just literally said what he saw. And I think everyone was kind of thinking that, but because we're fans, we can't really articulate that when we're watching the game because we get so frustrated with it. But I think Keith Curle always talked about the fundamentals and the basics of football and that puzzle piece that he seemed to always be missing. But generally speaking, the very basics of football, like I said it on our chat the other day, it's like defend, get goal side, and attack. Basics of football. Score more goals than the opposition. That's it, really. And because I think it has been so poor on that really basic level, there's nowhere to build. And I think it becomes really obvious, and it becomes more obvious when you play Wigan, who we scored 3 goals against 4 months ago. So we've obviously regressed. We haven't got any better. We've definitely regressed because we were in a better position 4 months ago. But it just seems so stale, doesn't it?
It does. I mean, let's talk about how it's been, this season, Neil. First of all, we will go back and sort of maybe celebrate a little bit more what his achievements, if you like. But it wasn't good enough, was it? And we all agreed that essentially it felt more like a chore to be watching the Cobblers this last, say 3 months than it should have been.
Yeah, it's not been fun, has it? And you don't really support the Cobblers. If you support the Cobblers, you don't do it through fun. You do it through sort of blind loyalty and because they're your team and stuff. And I get that. And I'm the same. I mean, we didn't even have a shot in anger last night. Like, there was just nothing there. It's gradually, and the most frustrating thing that I found about Keith Curle was when you think we'd got it, and you so take, for example, that first half performance against Lincoln, you thought, hold on, there's looking like there's something here we can get behind and we can support, and this might be a bit of an improvement. If it carries on like this, we're probably going to be all right. And then lo and behold, it's back to absolute dire, just turgid football. And look, you can argue the point about possession stats, and I know we've had a bit of a joke about it before and stuff, and actually I don't think possession is massively important, but it's what you do with the ball when you do have the ball. And the problem is we weren't doing much with it ever. We weren't creating much, and that instantly puts pressure on the defense, because if you're not scoring goals, then essentially if we concede a goal, we're going to lose. So I don't know, it's the right time, and it makes sense. I just think feels a little bit to me that Keith Curle is probably past his best. Football's moved on, certainly since he played, and the style and the approach he had did seem to be stuck a little bit in the dark ages. And best will in the world, look, nobody really likes losing, but you can take losing a little bit more if you feel like the team have given it a good go, given it everything they've got, and it's been a little bit entertaining. We've had chances, we've been a bit unlucky here and there and stuff. Too many of our results were to nil. We just weren't scoring, and it just wasn't exciting. And it like we've said it so many times, I think, on the podcast WhatsApp group, as it's coming up to a game, we've said, I'm not going to watch this weekend. I just can't face it. Inevitably, when it came about 5 minutes before kickoff, we'd all paid for it and we're watching anyway. But it's that thought process. You don't want to think like that. You don't want to feel like that. But as a fan, it kind of, it had to change.
Yeah, that is the thing, isn't it? I mean, look, we can see there's loads of comments. Like, if you want to say anything, say your piece, then do pop a comment on whether you're watching on Facebook or YouTube or Twitter, whatever it is, and we will get round to some of those comments and actually having a chat about them. So do keep those coming. We can see them there.
Mark's got a good point, hasn't he? About Port Vale. Never know. Yeah,
Mark's saying that Curle might get the Port Vale job. Solid and spectacularly to manager. The thing for me, I mean, Danny, you've been pretty much, I think, out of the four of us, probably the most. I know we joke about you writing blogs and things, but you've actually probably been the most positive.
Yes, he loves Keith Curle.
Yeah.
Now I wrote a blog about loving Keith
At
Curle.
one point, he said Keith Curle for England manager.
He did.
But because it was you, like Neil talked about there, about how it was Saturday, wasn't it? We'd said after last week's Tuesday game against Blackpool that was it. Me and Neil were like, no, we're not watching the Blackpool game. We're not paying for it. Sorry, the Accrington game. Sorry, we're not going to pay for it. That'll be it. But actually, it was you, Danny, that was more like, well, I'm watching it.
Basically,
come on,
a tenner,
come on. Yeah. Essentially, what we're saying is £10 each, please.
Yeah. I don't know. I think it's the thing you go back to earlier, where you're talking about Keith Curle as a person, as a human, that you sometimes have to separate that from the football side of things. And I sometimes find it hard to do that because we've met him, because he's come on and given up his time and chatted to us for a couple of hours, maybe potentially fell asleep.
He did. He definitely did.
Yeah.
And you can't blame him.
Yeah, gave me a death stare when I talked about the tactics. You kind of, once you do that and you kind of start to get into the mind of someone, you do look at things a little bit differently to how you would if you just going in, week out, and just you see it and you don't have any interactions with him. So I think from that side of things, that's why I wanted to give him a bit of time, and because of what happened last season. There was a lot of money in the bank from the playoffs just because of how intense it was in that time, and it was the only thing that kind of kept us all going during that time. And you kind of see, and you look back and you see what got you through that, and that playoff stuff, and us doing all our things around the playoffs. He was a kind of figurehead of that, and he was the one in charge of that. And I don't think that should be forgotten. But turn it into a League One season, and everything just went wrong for him. Like signings, like Charlie Good leaving is basically his number one in the locker room. Verdane going, Morton not coming back, everything just went against him, and he just didn't replace it properly. And I think on a footballing side of things, he just got it completely wrong in the summer. He almost admitted that by making the January signings that he did, by saying like Missalou went to Swindon, like never to be seen again. Some of them just been disappearing onto the bench and stuff. And I think it got to the point last night where I just had to just separate everything else from that and just be like, this is just diabolical. It was literally one of the worst games I've ever seen. Like not just us, but Wigan as well. And our performance was it was too much. Like I said, even last week, you were like a go at me for saying we need a minimum of 4 points from these two games. And you were like, no, it has to be 6, it has to be 6. And fair enough. It probably did. And now we're going to end up with a minimum of 3. But that was just a tipping point. And you kind of just have to take away the personality of Keith Curle, how we've been chatting to him from the management side of things. And it's a massive shame because I wanted him to do it, but it's the right call.
I like how optimistic you are, by the way, by saying a minimum of 3. So you think we're winning on Saturday against Burton, do you?
Yeah.
Oh, Danny.
Isn't the ridiculous part as well that he so your point, Danny, that he seemed to admit some mistakes by going into the January transfer window and making slightly different types of signings, shall we say. Very keen to put out there as well that they were his first choice signings this time around. One of which, Uncle Bryn, who is clearly a footballer, wants the ball, wants to be able to play football. Jack Sowerby, I know he's not been that impressive and stuff, but another footballer, and I know he didn't sign in January, but another footballer, someone who wants the ball and wants to play football and stuff. Yet he signs those people, but still launches it. And still,
last night in the game, this was the actual... This told me that he'd lost it, if you ask me, was the fact that double change at half time, where he basically changed took McWilliams and Sowerby off for Uncle Bryn and for Ryan Watson, which, and you've got the player, you've got the commentary teams, you've got Henners on Twitter, for example, saying, Bryn should have started. Bryn Morris should have started the game in his opinion. I think as long as he was fit and was fully over his illness, he definitely should have started for me. But it was the fact that, we are bringing on 2 players that are definitely more ball to feet, can pass it around, can be creative. And yet we don't change the actual tactics, if you like, and we still hit it over the midfield and bypass it completely. There was no difference to the way that we were playing once we made that substitution. It was just, I literally looked at it and just went, that's wrong. What's the point in making that change? That change hasn't done anything apart from save the legs of, 2 midfielders who spent the whole game chasing shadows.
You don't get into football for that. If you're a footballer, you do not get into football to play in that sort of team and that sort of tactics. Because where's the enjoyment? Where's the fun of it? As much as you want to win, but where's the fun in turn around and leg it back towards their path? Oh, right, turn around and leg it back to our. Like in the end, you're just like, fuck this. Yeah. So I'm not surprised that performances have just kind of took a nosedive slowly but surely.
The pivotal moment for me yesterday or last night was Bolger coming off straight after that mistake, because to me that cries out that you view that as a graveyard and therefore you've got to come off, which taking it in the very basics is punishment as such for not getting something right. What really frustrates me about that is Bolger's made mistakes pretty much every game since we started in August. Okay, now for whatever reason he's not performed to what either he's capable of or he's he's not capable enough for League One. So for me to pull off your captain, who I've said this on Twitter, he's not captain material, never has been. I don't like him as a captain. May well like him as a player.
I think we've just lost
No, I'm
Likes him
back.
that
Are you
much.
back? Are
Likes
you
him that
back? There
much.
you go.
It's all right. It's the garage. It's fine.
Keith
you
Bulger's
sure?
broken into
Keith
your house.
Bulger.
Yeah. He popped up.
But yeah, I just think that was that's so ego based, isn't it? You know, if you're going to give somebody the captaincy, they've got to be the right person in the first place. This is nothing to do about with Kean Bolger, tonight's podcast, but that substitution really was sour for me because he's not good enough. I don't think he's ever been good enough. He's made so many mistakes, but to pick out that one mistake and bring him off for that just seemed really ego driven, and I don't like that. I think that was a really poor sight, and you know, Kean Bolger, for all his faults, is the captain and therefore should be on the pitch, as much as I don't like him. But
how many people watching on the telly though, when the mistake happened and the goal went in, automatically shouted, "Get him off! Get him off! He's rubbish! Get
Mine
him
was
off!"
worse than that.
Yeah, I bet it was.
It was worse than that.
Just very quickly, Jeffy, you need to pedal faster, says Giles.
It's the
Your tab
garage.
is playing
It was
up.
just the garage. It's
I
all
love
right.
it.
It's fine. When the garage goes up, the internet dies.
Love it.
Watch it problems.
Insight into life in Watch It, everybody.
Honestly,
I absolutely
we
love
were
it.
still on dial-up till about a year ago, so this is great.
Look, taking that point with Bolger, the interesting thing for me in that post-match interview that we had to wait 4 years for after the game had ended.
Wasn't it worth waiting for as well?
He didn't quite go Dean Austin, did he? But I mean,
Near enough.
He said at the
quite
start of
close.
it, didn't he? He said at the start, "I'm going to tell you exactly what I think," and I thought, "Hello, here we go. This is going to be
Yeah.
tasty." It was the same old nonsense.
It was.
You tell us this every week, Keith.
It was a lot. There was a lot of like him thinking what we wanted to hear.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was exactly it. He'd
Yeah.
lost it by that point.
It's like,
I think
let's show some bottom.
I think that the thing that he said about Bolger, and I mean, because I was fuming about the fact that he picked up that yellow card in the first half because it was so cheap, so needless. You know, the decision's been made, and you've just got to get on with it, haven't you? And just deal with it. I don't care that you're the captain and that you think that you should be able to talk to the referee. Just don't get yourself booked for whatever reason. I mean, if you ask me, and look, this is definitely nothing to do with the fact that we lost last night. But I thought the referee was just crap and was one of those refs where it was all about him. But beside the point, you're never gonna get anywhere with a referee like that. So I was so annoyed when Bolger picked up that yellow card, and actually it leads to what that happened with the mistake, because if he wasn't on that yellow card, guarantee you he takes a swipe at the player's legs. Or pushes him out, or does something that would get him booked. But
And
because he's already been booked, he can't do it.
And you know, if he was quick-minded enough, I know it's difficult because I'm not a footballer, but if he was quick-minded enough, he'd know that he wouldn't get sent off for that or yellow carded because of the new triple jeopardy thing that come in. So if he'd have taken a swipe, he gamble and take a swipe.
Well, you've got to play the ball, haven't you? To not get sent off, you've got to be playing the
exactly.
ball. There was
I don't
absolutely
think he
no
ever
way that
plays
he'd
the
have.
ball.
No, exactly.
So, but do you know what I mean? Like, at least read the game well. At least read it. But it's like we could go over it for hours. It was just a howler. But you're like, if that was Charlie Good, it wouldn't happen. But if it was Charlie Good, we'd take him getting booked after 30 minutes for having a go at the ref because there's clearly obviously an issue. But Kean Bolger, it seems to be just a continuous thing of like arguing the ref for the sake of it. And I know Charlie Good was very good at that type of playing as such.
Well, I think he was quite cheeky with it. I think that's probably
Charming.
why he got away with it quite a lot. Whereas Bolger quite clearly just lays into people, I think, is the way that it was done.
I think
Ben Barker, Good would have caught him. You're quite right,
yes,
Ben,
absolutely.
to be fair. I mean, the thing for me with it is that he's come out and he says that, Curle is basically saying he's lost his filter in that moment, in that interview, hasn't he? Because of the way that he turned around and just went, he needs to keep his mouth shut. There's no way a measured Keith Curle says that in 6 months ago. He wouldn't have said it. Not in public in an interview like that after the game. He would have just said, it's something that we've got to correct and that, Kean's aware of and that we need to try and, get out of him, kind of thing. He would never have gone that far with it. I mean, somebody said in the comments, it's Will Ulrich, you could see when Bolger came off, he ran straight past Curle. I mean, annoyed, wasn't he, at getting substituted? Probably annoyed at giving away the mistake. Annoyed at then being subbed.
No, I don't think he was, Charles. I don't think he cares.
I don't think we
He's
can.
all in on Bolger.
Yeah, you are all in.
I just don't. I don't think he cares enough.
I think
I really don't. And I think that comes from being unhappy and playing the type of football we're playing. I think if he's got a manager that is going to allow him to be a bit more free, I think that will come. But at the moment, I just don't.
You don't want Bolger to be free? Fucking hell.
Run free.
To play football.
Run free.
Anyway, look, this isn't.
Will, I agree with you. He is the worst captain, in my opinion, as well.
It's not all about Bolger. And in fact, I will go as far to say that in recent weeks, the defence has looked better than it was, even without Sheehan. But the problem is that it was almost like, for me, Keith Curle saw the problem. We were shipping goals far too easily, and that was happening. So therefore, he concentrated on sorting out the defence, which he did. But having sorted out the defence, that then meant that we had no attacking threat whatsoever.
Damn that jigsaw.
And it was literally that thing. And it was just like, oh, so now we've gone from being really hard to watch and conceding lots of goals to being really, really difficult to watch and not even looking like we're going to score. And that, for me, it's always going to be a sign of he can't quite work out what to do.
The thing is, also, not only has, we've talked about the defence, we've talked about Bolger individually, but collectively, they've not been good enough for a good few months. Like Sam Hoskins has been woeful. Sorry, Danny. A lot of them just haven't played at all. So, we can sit here and slate one player all we like, but that's just not fair. I think generally speaking, they've lost their, not even ability, because ability is quite a strong word, but just something is missing from that squad that needs to be put back. And I don't know what it is, but yeah, it's tricky.
I think the worrying thing about it all is we haven't ever really seen quality from that squad. So we don't know if it's there or not.
Yeah,
that's the problem with a new manager coming in. Where is the quality coming from?
I think personally, I think it will be the change in mentality and a change in, dare I say the words, playing style. I just think you look at the players that we have got, and one of us, or maybe it was one of our patrons in our Slack channel, patreon.com/Cobblers to me, to join the Slack channel, by the way, everybody. You can. Somebody definitely said that all of the creative players, they're all on the bench, or they're all not in the squad, or in the case of, and this isn't necessarily an opinion that I share, but a lot of fans will point at Ricky Holmes. There's a creative player for you right there, and he's not even been given a longer term contract. So there are players there, I think, for a new manager to come in and basically have a bit of a play around with in terms of formation, playing style, and all of that sort of stuff. Neil, behave.
Let's give it to Kioso and let him go. That's all we got. Let him bomb.
Kioso's actually nuts. He's a bit like De Montignac.
Oh no! Don't no! Come on, Jeffy.
Just in terms of wildness, he seems quite wild.
I saw somebody say that he was like just slightly better than Paul Rodgers.
It's like I'm slightly better than Paul Rodgers.
Whoa!
Biggest backhanded compliment I've ever seen.
Charles, your point about creativity. Well, it wasn't your point, was it? It was someone else's point, but whoever raised it is actually, when you think about it, is actually pretty much bang on, isn't it? Because anyone with any sort of that plays with any sort of expressiveness, is that even a word? I don't know. I'll use that word anyway.
Is now.
Yeah, it is now. Or any sort of freedom doesn't really get near the team. Well, certainly doesn't get to start. If you look at, we don't have a huge amount of those players, but those few players that are like that we do have, you've got Chuck. He's relatively sort of expressive, creative, youthful. Corboa, I know the jury's definitely out on him and stuff, but he is the sort of player, certainly when he joined, he came as a sort of an attacker, like a tricky attacker.
Exciting, a tricky attacker, yeah.
Mark Marshall, he's a winger. He's got a good step over. He's got a few a few tricks up his sleeve. None of them get anywhere close. You look at the others, like you mentioned, Ricky Holmes. He's gone. I'm not sure whether he was the answer or not, to be honest, but he's gone. Nicky
I think
Adams,
he bought Curle time. I reckon that signing alone bought Curle time.
it might well have done. It might well have done. But essentially, anyone that's got a bit of creativity or anyone that's got a bit of excitement is sort of shunned or put at left wing back or right wing back and told to do a job. Like Mark Marshall doesn't want to be playing at wing back, does he? He wants to be affecting the game in the final third, and so does Ricky Corboa. And even look, I know Sam Hoskins has got his detractors and stuff, but he doesn't want to. He's not a left wing back. He shouldn't be playing at wing back. If anything, he should be playing further forward.
That was something that really annoyed you last night, wasn't it, Danny? Mills came off.
It's happened twice.
For Sam Hoskins to go and play at left back.
It's twice, and like he did it at Accrington. He brought Mills off, put Hoskins left wing back, who's not a left wing back, and then he's got Marshall who comes on late on who can kind of play winger. It's just ridiculous. It just slowly started to just.
Don't forget he played Kevin Van Veen at wing back.
I was going to say I was going to come up to
Don't forget
that as well. He once played Kevin Van Veen wing back.
Don't forget that.
It's almost the position that Curle used to basically try and just, get somebody's ego in check. Almost it was like you've got an ego, left wing back, pal. See how you like that.
Ricky said as well when he came in, didn't he? He's like, "I'll play anywhere, but I can't play wing back." Yeah. It's almost like he knew it.
To be fair, Ricky probably would have done a decent job at wing back, but let's not try it. Hey,
there's some comments. I've just noticed some comments, by the way, coming up about like the likes of that we were just talking about, like Chucky, Corboa, and Marshall and stuff. Haven't really done anything when they've come on. Impossible to do anything when they come on in that style. Really, this doesn't. That's the problem. It doesn't. They're being sort of. It's what's the saying? Square pegs in round holes, or whichever way it is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's the problem. Isn't it? So, can we talk about who's going to replace him yet? Anyway, or
yeah, why not? I mean, we're 40 minutes in now, so I mean, I suppose
we've gone on for that long about Keith Curle.
We should have a look. I mean, look, don't get me wrong. We're staying here until we're done and we've got everything off our chest, essentially. But somebody screenshot that, please.
Okay.
I mean, obviously, to start off with, we've got John Brady in as caretaker, who's going to be ably assisted by Samo and Rico. I think actually that's not a surprise, is it? And in fairness, it's the most obvious thing in the world to do, is to give those three people the helm for now. But first of all, guys, do you think that that they might even want to carry on and do it long term, or and B, do you think that they're even an option for long term? Jeffy?
Yeah, I think I get cross actually when people aren't considered long term if they're coming in as caretaker, because for me, if the board feel that they are fit and able to take over that role on a temporary basis, they should have the option to go on and want to do it permanently. I mean, look at Dean Austin. It really didn't work out. And we could sit and talk all day about Dean Austin's reign. It was, there were so many things that went wrong. But the one thing I think that everybody takes away from that is that we really wish it did, because you could see what he was trying to do, and you could see he felt so passionately about it. And I mean, Samo's got Northampton Town running through his veins, hasn't he? To be fair, so has Rico. So I think they need to be given a shot. And I think if it works, I think the interesting thing and the really pivotal thing on Saturday is if we come out, win well and perform well, you've got to question whether it was just the playing style, especially if we do go on like a 2 or 3 game run where we perform particularly better, significantly better. That's going to scream out that it was the management and the players have got it in them. But that remains to be seen. But there's absolutely no reason why those 3 shouldn't be given a shot. But I like the idea of the Cowley brothers. That's been coming up on the feed quite a lot. I like that idea.
Well, can we just as you put that, Jake, who is our Lincoln fan that has been on the preview show a few weeks ago, he did ask if we wanted the down low on the Cowley brothers, and his response is this: direct football, which we know all about, but it is bloody effective. Plus, you get to sign John Akinde, all winners. I love it. I love it. Going back to Brady, Samo, and Rico. Neil, are you what are you kind of hoping for? I mean, obviously, I think there's always a new manager bounce, isn't there? It always is. Whether or not it results in a win.
Charles,
Well, you say that.
Just it doesn't necessarily result in a win, but there is always some sort of bounce. There's that thing of players that suddenly go, well, I might have to fight for my place here. A new manager comes in, he might not want me. I need to play for my position. Do you think that John Brady, a person who has been at the club for a number of years now, but obviously only working with the youth, do you think he's got what it takes to, at the very least, set us up for survival if it needs to be that way?
I don't know, Charles, because he's never been a manager for us, has he? He's never been a manager in professional football, essentially. He's done youth stuff. But I don't know. On the face of it, I'd imagine the plan is hopefully these three can sort of get us going a little bit and potentially keep us up. And I kind of would, my view is if they can do enough to keep us up, get us through to summer, reevaluate it, then unless there's a standout candidate, which I don't think there is, not that of the obvious names that are being bandied about. There's a few names that have been thrown around that I think are way out of our sort of financial kind of reach, if that makes sense. The likes of the Cowleys, Paul Cook, I think I've seen mentioned a few times. Like someone even mentioned, was it? I think it was you, Danny. Actually, Wagner, was it?
It was
David Wagner. Yeah, get him in.
Alan Pardew, I think you said as well.
No, Pardew wasn't me. I'd never suggest such a thing as that.
But I think, yeah. So I think my view is, look, for everyone and for the club, we hope that it works, right? And we hope that they get us going a little bit and stuff and manage to keep us up. I don't think, it's probably an unpopular opinion, but I don't think they should get it full time.
A question mark for me would be whether they want it full time.
Well,
I mean,
they might not. Yeah.
When we spoke to, when I spoke to Samo for the Liverpool documentary, he was quite adamant that he didn't want to be a manager again. So, I mean, to me, it does say that he's probably doing this as a, short-term interim measure, and he's agreed to that.
The ideal world, the ideal situation for me as a supporter is these three manage to keep us in League One, or however way they do it. In the summer, we take restock of things. We appoint someone with a vision, with a kind of a relatively attractive style. Not saying it has to be, Man City-esque, pass, etc. But at least something to it, as opposed to what we've just experienced the last couple of years. Rather than, I don't want to see us and have us in a situation where we've just had Keith Curle, who, let's be honest, he is a firefighter manager, really, isn't he? That's what he is. He is a firefighter manager. He's old school. He's done the rounds. I don't want someone else like that. I've had enough of seeing managers come to us and fail, go to another club, get another job, fail. I've had enough of that. So I'd want to see us, I think, take a bit of a punt on someone young and up and coming. And look, might well be Brady, but I'd want us to evaluate it properly in the summer and give ourselves a chance to take the time of it. 'Cause at the moment, we don't really have the time. So yeah, I guess I hope that it works for them, and then we don't need to do anything until the summer. Otherwise, I don't know what I'd do.
Yeah, just a quick point of note here for you, Danny. Matt Webber's in the chat. More likely to get Wagner from X Factor than David Wagner.
Evening, Mark.
It's him in.
Obviously collecting content ready for tomorrow's Cobblers show. Look, I like the thought of having Brady in until the end of the season, as long as it does mean that there is a shift. The one worry I think you always have when it comes to promoting from within, whether it's on a full-time basis or short term, is that thing of you're just kind of following on. There's not necessarily any new ideas so to speak. I don't mean that to be disrespectful towards any of those three, but it's just that thing. You obviously work with a manager for a period of time, and you work with the same squad over that same period. Then, are you necessarily going to have the complete different set of ideas to what was already there, or are you just going to be basically looking to tweak it? Would that be enough to keep us up? I don't know. I mean, the one thing actually I want to quickly say is that we're almost, I certainly felt like then for a second that I was talking like it's all doom and gloom and we're definitely down, but mathematically actually it's definitely not an impossibility to stay up. We're not, I think, is it only like we'd only actually technically need one win and we'd be back outside of the relegation zone. Yeah. So
the trouble we've got at the minute is that Tisdale's gone, isn't he? And I think it's between us and Bristol Rovers for that last spot, realistically. I think.
Well, that history will just repeat itself, Jeffrey. It's fine. They'll get relegated to the conference.
Well, I hope so, because the amount of grief I'll get here if it doesn't. But the thing is, no, don't. But the thing is, they're going to have the same effect as what we are, and effectively, it's a game of chase, isn't it? It's a game of who can get that win and further away quicker, and it's a 50-50, isn't it? I think that's the issue at the moment. I think had Tisdale not gone, I'd probably feel a bit more optimistic. But because he's gone, they're going to have exactly the same bounce back ability effect. But like I said on the pod the other night, they're going to have the same effect as us. So it is literally going to be dog eat dog.
It was a load of clamour for us to get Tisdale a while back, wasn't there? Do you remember?
Yeah, there wasn't there?
Curle, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, it was definitely one before. In the past that I think I've looked at. I mean, the one manager for me, I think that I would have loved to have seen. I've had this conversation on Twitter with.
Don't you say it, Charles. Don't you say Richard Hope.
No, no. Was I was talking to the guys that run the Salopcast, which is Shrewsbury's fans podcast, and it would be Steve Cotterill. I mean, obviously he's not available and everything, but look at the job that he's doing for Shrewsbury there. He's a manager that I would have loved to have seen at the Cobblers, especially for League One. But I do get the feeling that essentially we're too small fry, if you like, for him. I will caveat it as well. Sorry, Danny, with the fact that the last time that I actually wanted a manager that we got, that was Gary Johnson.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Sorry, Danny, I interrupted you. Go.
No, that's all right. I'm kind of torn between wanting to do the whole like romantic stuff and getting old players in, and John Brady and Samo and Rico will be the dream team. But between that and wanting someone with actual League One experience and just wanting someone who knows the league, because I don't think Cole knew the league particularly well enough. So someone like I've been looking through the list, and Joey Barton actually stands out in that sense. Like, it might not be the most popular appointment, but he's got a bit of personality about him. He's got a bit of
of personality about him.
He's got a good right hook as well.
Yeah,
he's a bellend.
Yeah.
Do you know though?
We just had a really nice guy in charge, and it didn't quite work out in League One. Let's get a knobhead.
Completely the other way.
Just appoint a knobhead. Come on, let's line them all up.
I love
it. Only knobheads need apply.
I would say about that though, someone's just said, who is it? I can't see. Leeds United, Mike Fuller. He's just said it's a risky one, but is a risk not worth taking on that? I mean, I don't particularly want Joey Barton in charge of Northampton Town, because I mean, that just spells disaster everywhere. But equally, is it worth the risk? Like, is someone really fired up like that going to go and put them in their place? It's a bit
That's
like,
what I mean. It's like that hunger. That's what we want. We want that hunger from someone from the top. And
the concern with Joey Barton is he literally would put them in their place, though.
Yeah.
But we run onto the pitch.
Is that going to do it? I mean, there's rumours that he got sacked from Fleetwood because he had a fight with one of his players or something. And it's like, yeah, exactly. But also, I'm not suggesting that that's the right thing to do, but we have Keith Curle was so tame, wasn't he? Like, he's like, oh yeah, well, the jigsaw's not quite done. Like, come on, give us something. I mean, I don't want our players beaten up. That's horrific. But do you know what I mean? It's like somewhere in the middle would be nice.
But okay, looking at where he took Fleetwood, that's all I'm saying about that one. Is like League One, that size of team to take him to that level in the playoffs and stuff. I just think someone like that who knows the league a bit more would be good.
The only caveat I would say to that though, Danny, is he's had a decent old budget at Fleetwood.
Yeah.
He's not that is again something else, isn't it?
He's not going to get that here.
I'm looking in the comments that we're getting at the moment with a few different suggestions. One here twice actually. So Cobblers NTFC on Twitter and James Casey on Facebook saying Nigel Adkins, proven manager at League One and higher. Only place he's failed was at
supply
Sheffield United,
teacher.
and that took someone like a Wilder.
It's a supply teacher.
Yeah,
He's very. I worked with
Nigel Atkins.
No, literally. Very political, very much like Curle. From a media point of view, very much like Curle. You'd probably thinking carbon copy of Keith Curle, just that step up. So I think you'd probably get in the same thing, but just a step up.
Well, he played a different style of football.
Yeah, but in terms of like the media and that portrayal and the club side.
The other comment, well, not just a comment, but this is I've seen it a few times. The name, Sol Campbell.
No.
Right, just very, very quickly on Sol Campbell. This is the immediate no-go, and it won't happen for this very reason, which is that essentially he's far too expensive, and he's not actually done anything to warrant it. I mean, essentially he brings in a whole coaching staff team. The two clubs that he's been at, Macclesfield and Southend,
Pretty much gone bust.
Go and look at their bank balance.
Yeah.
Don't do it. Yeah, that would be
do you want some more names on the betting odds list?
Go on.
Yeah, let's have it.
It's always amazing, this list. It comes out every time and we just like, what is going on? Holloway's in there at 8-1.
I'd love
get him in.
Get him in there.
Holloway.
He hates us, but get him in.
He's done his time as a football manager. He's gone.
I love Ian. I think he's great.
Yeah, I like him as well, but I don't want
He's
him
from
as
the
our
West
manager.
Country.
He's
Danny,
good value. He's good entertainment value as a
Doesn't
individual,
mean he should be our manager.
but it doesn't mean he should be our manager. No.
Derek Adams is quite an interesting one, actually. The Morecambe manager is doing good things with them, I think.
I mean, get him in, except he won't come because we'd have to pay for his transfer, so to speak.
Yeah, Paul Cook's the other one that stood out to me as well, just that in terms of the character and getting the most out of his players and kind of lifting everything. Like in terms of just like that immediate lift, I can imagine him going in and just having a massive effect on the whole club and getting the fans on board again. But
Gareth Kingston makes a very good point about Ian Holloway. We're his bogey side, so he'd never be able to win.
What was it? You never beat the Cobblers.
Yeah.
John Eustace is there.
Ex-Coventry.
in as well.
It's been pretty useless for a while, so that would be
Useless Eustace.
Yeah.
There's the
Tony Pulis. Tony Pulis at 16-1.
Bring in.
Can you imagine?
Get him in and his baseball cap. Come on.
Rory Delap. Just sign him up. Craig Bellamy's in there, 20-1.
Craig Bellamy.
Craigie Bellamy.
Dan Townsend's made a really good point.
Yeah, he gets mentioned a lot, doesn't he?
Kevin Wilkin.
Yeah. I mean, you Neil wanted him, didn't you? Before when Curle was announced, that was your choice, wasn't it?
He was my choice. Yeah. I still wouldn't be adverse to it. I mean, I don't know enough about him really, but he's the sort of person I think I like, someone up and coming, as opposed to a journeyman manager that's on their way back down. And that's the likes of Holloway, Adkins, people that have done the rounds, and that's. I want to see some form of plan moving forward and some form of like, look, we're in it. This is what we're going with. This is our style. This is going to be our approach. It's going to be, down through the all ages and stuff, rather than getting someone in who's going to, be here for a year or two and then see you later.
Well,
that was the point I was making earlier about Jason Tyndall who just left Bournemouth. That kind of young manager who's clearly got a plan and has been working with someone who plays really good football for donkey's years, just to give him a chance. But then it's that, what happens if it doesn't work straight away? Like we might not be in a position where that type of managers can come in and have a immediate impact, but someone like that would be good, I think.
Yeah. What you said there, Neil, I find interesting. So both obviously Curle and Colin West have left the club. So there was no mention of Dan Watson in there, goalkeeping coach. I presume, that therefore he stays until maybe another manager comes in and wants his own keeper coach, maybe, essentially. The other person that obviously wasn't mentioned and was actually quite a big part, I think, of Curle's backroom team, Simon Tracy, head of recruitment. I mean, he is the kind of role, isn't he? That is that, take the style and take the kind of players that we're going to have on.
He's done a bloody good job this year, hasn't he?
I was waiting for that.
I mean, I just, but the thing with it is that you look at it and you go, that there are certain people that say, oh, we need to have, what is it? They call it a technical director, and that is kind of separate from the management or the playing staff side of things. And they're the ones that actually oversee the way that we're going to be and our identity and things like that. I mean, one thing that, has to be said about with Keith Curle, he did give us an identity. Whether or not he bloody liked it is another story. But I mean, whenever you sack a manager, then essentially the way it happens is the whole thing starts all over again from scratch. A new manager comes in. And if they're not in the same vein as the one before, I mean, this is essentially where it went wrong after Wilder left, is that Rob Page wasn't the same type of, he didn't want to play the same type of football that Wilder did. And so therefore there was all of that just sort of disappeared. So
Rob Page was a bit of a melt though, wasn't he?
Stephen Robinson's got it for me.
Who?
Stephen Robinson.
Is that quite far up the chat? I've lost it. There's quite a lot. Go
No, it's
on.
down the bottom. It's just there, Charles. Just
Just
it's there. There it is. Just get him in.
come on, Bayo. Yeah.
Come on down.
I could
Bayo,
see.
the Bayo coming back is never going to go away. Now, like, if we've had it as a player, now for the next 20 years, it's going to be as a manager.
He'll be sat there when he's 90, like scrolling through Twitter.
Yeah.
Can you just stop with this Bayo back?
It's almost as bad as people wanting Bukes back, isn't it?
Yeah.
I'm not saying any more than
Did you
that.
see, by the way, Mrs. Bukes
Yeah,
Oh, well.
I saw that.
tweeted a picture of Bukes and Rico on the pitch in their suits saying, is now the time?
Oh, man.
Was
Got a
that
lot of-
today?
Today, yeah, got a lot of love on Twitter. Yeah, got a lot of love. Yeah.
I think because that was sent to them, i.e. the Buchanan family, by one of the Cobblers fans that does all the sort of graphic design and
So
stuff
she-
a while
okay, so-
I
back.
do think.
Thought she'd been sat there doing it then. Right?
I do think with them, the big problem that we've got is that if something like that was to happen, you're in real danger. And we've said this a lot about John Joe when he left as well. You're in real danger of undoing the great things you've done. So, Rico, should he get it permanently, love him, think he's brilliant. But if somebody like Rico was to get it, club legend, what I don't want to see is what I saw with Samo, which I don't think would happen with this board. But what I saw with Samo was that awful end to what should have been a longer reign. So I think it's a fine line between optimism and foolishness.
I think I did see on Instagram that Nicky Adams has started his coaching badges. Just
Get them all in.
put it out there. Just get the
get
whole
the whole
2015-16
Get
team
everyone
back.
back. Yeah.
And
Try
just
a
say,
new one
right,
every
sort
week.
this lot out.
Just
I
get them in
like
their
this,
flip-flops, get them going.
I like this from Tom Sherratt. So he's saying that Harry Redknapp has gone in at Bournemouth as an advisor to Jonathan Woodgate. Perhaps something like that would be an option for us. Obviously not Redknapp, he says. But I mean, that's essentially what happened with Colin Calderwood and John Dean, isn't it, Danny? Which have got to be possibly, I don't know about you, but maybe one of my favourite managerial teams that the Cobblers have had in my lifetime. Just for one simple reason, which we can all join in
Colin and John.
together.
Colin and John. Colin and John.
What a
And
song.
Dave. And Dave.
Absolutely loved it.
That's almost as bad as the whole City song, isn't it? Getting mauled by the Tigers.
Oh, don't.
Oh, no,
Getting
they've got
mauled
dance.
by the- Shut
It's
up.
the dance. It's the dance that goes with it that gets me every time.
Shut up.
It's like, bloody hell, you're not in Haven.
I know.
I used to live there, and we used to do that every night when in the little kids thing when I used to live there. That was great.
Oh, dear.
I think that it's something that could definitely happen. Like I can imagine something like Kevin Wilkin coming in and maybe having somebody like, I don't know, say Samo above him in some way. I mean, actually, I'd quite like to have maybe Samo as, if he'd want it, that is, of course, is to have him as that kind of director of football kind of. So he will be a part of the club that is more kind of there as the go-between between the manager and then the board, and he's the one that will basically help the board to make a decision based on who would come in as manager, and therefore have that continuity. I think if you get somebody like Samo who's experienced as a manager, and somebody that knows the club inside out as well and has a passion for it, I think that could be quite good.
Don't forget that Colin Coldwood already works for the club.
No, he doesn't. That finished.
Did it? What? He's no longer coach of the International Academy.
No, he went to. I think he went to Blackpool. Took a job at Blackpool.
When did that happen?
Like literally a week after he announced that he was working for our international thing.
Well, that's gone well then.
Not even joking.
Who's in charge of it? Who's in charge of it now?
I don't know.
Does it exist?
I didn't see any.
Keith. Hold on.
I got a job for you, Keith.
Did you suggest? Somebody suggested that one of the reasons it took so long to announce the departure was that they were trying to offer him a different role within the club?
That was you, Neil.
I think Danny suggested builder so he could get the East End completed.
No, that's my job.
Well, Charles has gone.
Charles
what's going on?
Yeah,
Charles has gone to finish the East End.
Yeah.
Charles has been sacked. What do we do?
Just keep going. It'll be fun.
Someone's just mentioned Phil Brown.
Oh no!
Do you remember when he chucked all his whole players on the pitch in the at half time and screamed at them? Was that Phil Brown?
Yeah. This is exactly what
mad.
Neil was talking about, though, isn't it? In terms of the merry-go-round and just like these names that get thrown out all the time. You just someone with fresh ideas. I think is the way forward. And someone to I think what Charles was saying about Samo, you need someone there who actually understands the fabric of the club, understands what the fans are and what it means to them. As I sometimes felt. I sometimes felt that Curle saw it more of as a kind of transaction between him and the fans. Like he did so much good work in the COVID stuff, the lockdown first time around, in terms of ringing fans and stuff, which is great. But in terms of interviews and the way he spoke, it was more like a transaction between this is a management head over the whole thing. He didn't really have that proper connection to what was going on in the stands, and he didn't really care what was going on in the stands behind him. It was like proper stubborn in what he was doing. And I feel like you need someone, either manager or the kind of overseeing it, who gets us and who understands us. And that's what I was talking about Paul Cook, because he seems like the kind of character who grabs that and kind of gets right in there and rejuvenates the whole everyone and not just focuses on what's going on the pitch.
I think that word's quite important, Danny, as well, like that rejuvenate, because I think so many of us over the last few weeks have kind of just said it is such a bore. And the trouble is as well, I think it's magnified at the moment, isn't it? Because we're living in this kind of polar world where we can't go out. So it's really quite difficult that, we're being subjected to such poor football. So it's a really fine balance at the moment. And I think this has got to work. Like this management or managerial decision needs to be the correct one. I do really believe that Keith Curle at the time was the correct decision and he did the job he needs to do. But like you said, Neil, he's a firefighter manager. He's not a League One manager. And there's nothing wrong with that at all. Really isn't anything wrong with that. But this is where we need to really get this right now.
Yeah, he's just limited, wasn't he? He's very limited in his approach, and he's fine for a crisis. I.e., it'd be the great sort of person to bring in right now until the end of the season.
Yeah, absolutely. In League Two, but not in League One.
Maybe get him back on the phone tomorrow. And say, bit of a relegation problem.
I genuinely wouldn't be surprised to see him rock him at Bristol Rovers. Just like
that would be
that's where it's from this area.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'd like to
in that kind of role.
Forward thinking, aren't they?
Yeah, but they tried that with Tisdale, didn't they?
Yeah, true. Yeah, that's true.
But the problem is now we're both going to be going after the same people, essentially, aren't we? So, what's Tim Sherwood doing? Kieran says.
God, who cares, Kieran?
Getting a new gilet.
What?
Gilet. He wears them gilet things, doesn't he?
Oh, farmer's coat. Yeah, okay. Cool.
Farmer's coat.
We call it a farmer's coat. Yeah.
I did see somebody in the comments earlier. I've tried looking, but I can't find it now. But somebody did say that it doesn't matter at this moment in time whether the manager that we get in is experienced at this level. The actual thing that we need them to do is just be experienced at getting the players, ready to, to basically try and do the best that they can and just grind out some results. It doesn't really matter what league are in. to do that at this stage because, you know, we're not trying to win the league. We're trying to just remain in it. So does it really matter if they've got experience of the division or not? It probably doesn't.
I don't know. I think it does. I still think we need that survival plus plan because we're not, as you were saying, no, we're not in that drifting away. You know, we need a firefighter. We're desperate. There's still time for someone to come in and actually have a plan and win a couple of games. And we're suddenly out of the bottom four and we can look forward again. I don't think we should go an appointment of firefighter yet again and just being like, this is what we have to do to get out of the bottom four. Oh, we've done it. Like, great, well done, everyone. Go on holidays now, and we're on the beach all of a sudden. Well, we're not because we're not allowed to beaches. We're in the park.
You are if you live where I live. It's just there.
But you know what I mean? It's like I just want someone in with a bit more of a progressive. I don't want to use that word, but that plan of just like what's next.
I
Like,
don't
let's
think
get out
it'll
of it,
take.
but let's go and finish mid-table or something like that. Not just someone who's going to say like, let's go 20th.
I'll take anyone that doesn't talk
Yeah.
about fundamentals, to be honest.
Yeah.
But I
Or
don't think it'll take that
jigsaws
much,
or
though.
waves.
Yeah, I
But
don't think
I
it'll
think
take that much.
That's just Curl, though, and I don't think anyone's ever going to change him. Like like people were talking about him all the time, saying fundamentals, but that's just his style. It just didn't fit with what we needed it right now, and we can laugh at it when it's going well, but when it doesn't, it just comes across as really bad. And I don't think that's something against Curl. It's just the way he is. It just didn't go for us at the moment.
Okay. There is a question coming from Tom Sherritt that I want to get to in 1 second. I just want to mention this because it is hilarious. It's made me laugh. Yeston has just said, not sure why we sacked him. We should have just put him on furlough. It's comment of the evening there. Well done.
Oh, no, there's one underneath that's good as well. One underneath.
Yeah, we're not talking about Gaza. There's no way.
No! Keep
Danny
going,
mentioned
Ron.
Gaza on WhatsApp
This is-
earlier.
Get him in. He knows the area.
So I believe that this is the one that you're talking about, Jeffy.
Yeah.
Mike Fuller. We need someone with authority over the players. Get Jackie
Well
Weaver
done,
in.
mate.
If you're listening
She's
to this,
gone mega. She was on Loose Women today, guys.
if you're listening to this in about a year's time, you've got no idea who that is. It's one of those, isn't it? Right. The question: Are you right, Mark Johnson? Is this true? Dean Austin has just
Let's have a
tweeted
look.
he wants to go hunting again.
Oh,
Go and find out for me, Jeffrey. I need to know.
I'm
if that's
finding.
true.
I'm finding.
Right. Tom has
throwing the
asked
rats in the ring.
on Facebook. Keep your comments and your questions coming in, guys. We're going to stay here until we've basically given up all hope of living. But Tom has asked, who is your number one preference of the next manager or for the next manager for us? So should we go around it? I take it, Jeffrey, that picture you're showing us is the tweet that Dean has
Dean
put out.
Austin.
You know, you never know. If he gets the job, he might be allowed to come on the pod. You never know. So we'll start with you, Danny. Who would be your preference to get the job?
Bearing in mind everything I've said, Arsene Wenger. Sorry.
Brilliant.
No, I think Paul Cook if money's not an object.
Okay. Jeffy?
Alan McCormack. I saw Charles's
I
face
didn't need to
immediately.
ask, did I? Didn't
No,
need to
seriously though.
ask.
I think the Cowley brothers. I just gamble it. Just gamble and go. Cowley brothers.
Okay. Neil, for you?
I'd go Kevin Wilkin again, like before. I wanted before Curle. Caveated with along with an experienced number two that has got some experience, either being a manager or being a number two at sort of football league level.
Okay.
Graham Wesley.
Oh, Danny, get out.
Get out, Danny.
I'll openly admit that this is only, come to me because I've seen Phil Kirby's comment, but and has reminded me of him. But Chris Powell,
I thought of that as well earlier on today. Yeah, that would be an interesting one.
I think that would be interesting. I don't, maybe he's not been back in the game for long.
Yeah,
enough,
it was
or,
too long ago,
been
wasn't
out.
it? Yeah, good spell, but it was a while back.
He was Southampton.
Here's a shout. John Owen Morley from Chester, the ex-Salford City managerial couple, I'm going to call them.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
No, I don't.
Yeah, but I watched that. Was they the ones that were in charge during the Salford documentary?
Yeah.
I
original,
wasn't keen.
Someone mentioned Ian Culverhouse earlier as well.
They
as a left field
did.
shout. who's taken Kings Lynn up about, is it 2 divisions, I think, the last couple of years.
Plus, we'd be on Talk Sport nearly every single weekend, wouldn't we? With,
no, stop that then.
Chris Marriott has mentioned an Adam Knight, Neil Ciampolovia duo, and I went to school with them, and I can't think of anything worse.
I can, and Neil Edgerton Scott.
Fair point.
There you go. Oh dear. Graham Alexander's do you know, had it not been for what has happened with him at Salford, I'd have maybe think about it, but no, not for me. No, not a fan.
It's that thing, isn't it? Again, it's like it's a manager that's struggled elsewhere, and I'd rather we look at someone that is not tainted.
Yeah. I mean, this is it, isn't it? I mean, people will point to the fact that, we tried that with Dean Austin, it didn't work. But the one thing I'll say is that I go back to what I said earlier about promoting from within. You know, that was essentially what happened with Dean Austin. Neil, you never really liked the fact that he got given the job at time. I believe you even maybe had a sly conversation with a certain chairman once who was even admitted his unsureness, if that's a word. It is now.
He wasn't sold on his decision.
Yeah. But you know, it's that thing, isn't it, where you do go. I like the thought of giving up and coming managers a chance, because of the fact that I'm fed up with the old boys brigade, if you like. You know, that is just constantly happening. I mean, you look at it and you go, let's just take a very high profile example here in Jose Mourinho. You know, I mean, he's not done anything now since probably about 2 years before he left Real Madrid. So, I mean, and yet he still gets jobs and top level jobs, but he ultimately, you know, fails at every single one of them and doesn't do what the fans are hoping or wanting him to do. So it's just the old boys brigade and goes round and round in circles. I just don't.
Like Sam Allardyce. He gets
Yeah, I mean, I'm not. How long's Southgate been in charge of England now? It's got to be 3 years.
Bit longer than that, but nearly 4. Because it was
so it's nearly 4 years. It's nearly 4 years since Sam Allardyce was sacked as manager of England for basically accepting a bung.
Respect.
And yet he's managed to get back into the game.
Surprised Cardozo didn't want him. Oh, we're allowed to say that, way?
Yeah. Allegedly.
Allegedly. Sorry.
Yeah. Allegedly.
We were waiting for that one.
Tom wants to know how long until we get a solid answer.
Tom, we don't know.
We're live until we find out.
Oh dear.
They'll announce it as we fall off air.
Yeah. So, who was it that we signed? That we released just after
Missalou.
Who, by the way, went straight into team of the bloody week. Did you see? Went into the League One team of the week.
He did that in pre-season. He had a right stormer in pre-season and then just fell off. Like
Danny loved him. When Danny first saw him, Danny was honestly like, we found the new Patrick Vieira here, lads. This is brilliant.
Yes, you did compare him to Patrick Vieira.
Yeah. Oh,
you did.
I did, yeah.
But now look at him.
It's all well and good doing it against bloody, what's it called? Luton Reserves or whatever, isn't it?
FC Brixworth or wherever it was.
Yeah.
Sorry, I had a phone call.
You cut it. Oh, that was quick.
Very funny.
Turned it down.
Probably wise.
Hoskins player manager. Shout.
Oh, goodness me.
Can you imagine Twitter if that happened?
Phil was being very sensible up until he put that. There was one here. Did you mention it while I disappeared for a second there? Somebody put in about Danny, you'll know the person's name, Chelsea women's manager.
Yeah.
Emma Hayes.
Was linked with Wimbledon.
Yeah.
Emma Hayes, yeah.
Mm.
But like I mean, before,
didn't get it in the end, did she?
Yeah. I'm not saying it's a step. I'm not going to say whether it's step up, down, left, right, sideways, whatever. I just mean, is it an option for you? Would that be someone that you would maybe consider?
Well, yeah, because she's a great manager, but she wouldn't lower herself to this level of football. So.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Yeston's asking a question just to move it on a bit. anyone worried about Kelvin not being in the country who's going to do these interviews?
Have you seen Zoom? Zoom's
Neil.
a great tool.
Neil's
I'll
going
do
to do him.
Yeah, I'll pop round. I'll get them sorted. So it's just down the road. Fine. I'll be all right.
I would imagine that most of them will be done on Zoom, and if not, it'll be James Whiting will probably actually be the person that meets
Oh yeah,
them and stuff,
I mean, we
isn't it?
chatted with
But
Whiting, didn't we? And he's a scary old dude. So
Oh, he's a hitman, isn't he?
I think you've got to get through.
definite hit, man.
You've got to get through him to get to the big boss. I think.
He's
They'll just
watching
do
right
it-
now. You know that, don't you?
They'll just do it
Hi,
on Zoom,
James.
right? They'll just do interviews
Yeah,
on
yeah.
Zoom and phone
I assume
calls
so.
and WhatsApp videos or whatever it is and all that sort of stuff. There's
That's
loads
the
of
norm,
ways.
isn't it? Now, which is
I'm not a
scary.
cat.
Yeah, that was so good. Made me howl yesterday.
Mark Josiah is saying that the Cowleys spoke to Wimbledon out of courtesy, but said that they're waiting for a Championship or top end League One progressive club. So unfortunately, that ain't us, which is
Fair.
perfectly.
Well, it's not us,
fair.
you're right. Yeah.
Let me just get rid
What's
of
the
that
point of
one.
talking to Wimbledon then? I don't get it.
Yeah, out of courtesy?
Are they just bored? They just want to get that out of the house. 'Cause that's
Maybe
understandable
it
if they
might
do.
it might be that they wanted to hear what they had to say and what their plans were and stuff.
Yeah.
Because you might think, well, look, they're moving into their own stadium.
That's true.
Maybe they've got some investment coming in that they weren't aware of and stuff. So I guess it's worth having a chat. And then actually, no, it's going to be the same as it always is there. So
Yeah. Yes, suggests that Zoom is no good because we'll end up appointing someone who doesn't wear trousers.
what is that a
I'll
bad
draw
thing?
that one.
Yeah, Neil's not wearing any trousers. Yes, I don't understand.
None,
Yeah.
none of us are wearing trousers, right?
It's the working from home style now, right?
Stu's got a good point, but
yeah,
I don't
I
think
was
it'll be an
just-
issue.
I was just going to pick this up. So Stu says, you hope 3 voices on the bench won't confuse players on Saturday. Brady's voice only. Do you remember? I hate that I'm bringing this man's name up, but
Oh,
do
God.
you remember Gary Johnson and the way that he used to he'd step forward and then he said that he'd take a step back and let who was it? His assistant? Was it Lee?
Yeah, David Lee. Yeah.
David Lee, and let him be a different voice. I just seem to remember that sticking out, like, because you are technically only allowed to have one person standing in the technical area at a time, I think.
Yeah.
Was
So
that when he
therefore,
was that when he
Very
hid
loose.
in the
tag team.
I don't think that's a. I
That's
think
not
he
a
just
rule,
wanted
is
to
it?
hide. He just wanted to hide from
think
us,
so.
didn't he?
Is that a rule?
I think so. I think
I'm
when
sure
you-
I've seen 2 out there before.
I
Sure,
don't
I've
think
seen
you see
Weston.
them. I don't think you see them both right up on the. I say up on the line because it is at Sixfields because the pitch is so blinking narrow. But
Don't
right up to that
don't
dugout
complain about that. They'll
area.
make it wider, and then it'll be even more difficult for us to play on.
As I saw somebody say on Twitter earlier, we play with wing backs. Why is our pitch so narrow?
Yeah, but
Begs
I
our-
mean-
So Keith can get a little bit further away from the crowd. That was why.
It possibly is actually, isn't it? If there was a crowd. Interesting question here. Will Brady play more academy players? I mean, let's first of all ask the question to you, Danny. Do you think this might give Chuck Wamika a bit more of a look in?
Yeah, I think it would do. If it's Brady, he knows how to motivate him. I'm guessing if he's worked with him in youth team, I can imagine him starting on Saturday just because it's something different and a little bit something fresh, just to try out because we're not scoring goals. We might as well. He probably understands how he plays a little bit more, so why not? Makes perfect sense.
What about other players from the academy? Do you think maybe we'll see the likes of Max Dyche in the next few weeks?
I'd quite like to see Max Dyche. He seems like an interesting player. He seemed when did he get thrown? He got thrown on, didn't he, at one point, or thrown into the mix?
He played.
A Tuesday night randomly when we had all those problems in defence. I can't even remember what it was,
Yeah,
but
Cole liked to do that, didn't he?
yeah, but he stood out. It was a rubbish game from my memory, but he stood out as having something, didn't he? So I don't know whether actually Keith Curle Goins probably saved him a little bit because he tended to coach the ability out of players sometimes, Curle, to his detriment. But I think he's worth a shot on the basis that he has got nothing to lose by giving it a good go. Do you know what I mean? He's got nothing to lose by having a go and it going wrong because he's still young and he can still progress. Have a go, put it out there on the pitch, see what it's like.
I'm not sure it's the right environment to be blooding players from the youth team at the moment. it's a dangerous old game. I think Max Dyche is maybe slightly different because he has been blooded in a game or so before. So he's got
And he
that
is Sean's son.
Yeah, and you kind of have to, you don't want to upset Sean, right? So, but I think anyone else outside of that, I'm not sure it's the right time to be doing it.
Yeah,
for their own benefit.
The position of centre back as well is different to a striker. If you're throwing Chuck in, you can have a bit more freedom, but you're such an intense pressure on a centre back, then it is difficult if he makes a mistake to.
Yeah,
to
exactly. It could, in theory, could end a career before it's even started.
True.
Ryan Hughes.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, if you look back to the last time that we were sort of in this kind of position, and we did look to youth in a certain Ivan Toney. He did all right for himself in those last 4 or 5 games that he played. So obviously he scored against Dagenham, didn't he, and Oxford as well. It was Oxford, by the way, guys, that Dyche started in before. So I agree with you. I don't think that it is the right. I don't want not environment. I think is the wrong word, but it's the wrong time. We're in the wrong position. It's not right to be bringing young players in to try and get us out of a relegation battle. However, having said that, when you've got a player like Chukwuemeka, who I still don't think we've seen anywhere near enough of to know whether or not he's going to be good enough. So I don't think that anybody should be sort of thinking, that's it, we're going to now start with Chukwuemeka, he's going to start banging in the goals and we're all going to be okay. At the end of the day, for me, he's not lit the world on fire when he's come on. He's not been like the Messiah. He's just a good looking youth prospect. I do wonder how much things will change, and I'm with you, Danny. I do think that we'll probably see him start on Saturday as a different way of going. That was a question that we've actually had in from, let me just find it.
I've just remembered we've got Burton.
We have got Burton, don't worry, we'll get to it. So it's Leighton Bobby Cousins asks, what's your starting lineups for Saturday? I mean, let's not go through 11 players for each of us, but let's go with, what sort of changes do you expect to see? Or what do you think might happen? Like, I don't know, let's say, so for example, I don't think Bolger will play. I think Sheehan will be in.
Yeah, I think Watson should be in and Chuck should be in. I don't know. It's very difficult.
I think they'll go 4-4-2, most likely. They'll strip it back a little bit. 4-4-2. Let's try and get a result on. Because bearing in mind, what are we now? It's Wednesday, so they've only really got, and I assume they've probably had a day off today, right? So they're probably only really going to have tomorrow and Friday before the game. So they're not going to be able to do a huge amount before then. So I wouldn't be surprised to see it as a 4-4-2 and a slight change in personnel. I'd be surprised to see Edmondson start.
Yeah, I don't think he's up to it. Do you?
Yeah, no, I don't at all. Yeah, I would imagine Alan Sheehan might be miraculously fit again, potentially. Who knows? It's difficult because you just don't. That's the thing. To your point earlier, Charles, you just don't know whether there is enough of a disconnect between Keith Curle, Colin West, and these three, or whether it is going to be a bit more of the same. Like, so I guess the team sheet when it's announced at 2:00 on Saturday is going to be the most viewed team sheet for a long time, probably.
Neil, they had Tuesday off, says Matthew Crane.
Valid point, well made.
Miller's back in training as well, remember, as well.
Yeah.
That's another option to throw in there.
That was luck as well. I mean, we talk about Keith Curle not doing what he was supposed to do. He didn't. But I do think there was a couple of occasions where luck really did come into that, and we just didn't have at the beginning of the season, we had so many players out, and it just like Danny said earlier, it just started badly, and it's so hard. It's a bit like the John Gorman effect years ago. Do you remember? Everyone was willing him to be the person that took over and did really well and was really successful. It was just not the right time for him, and I don't think it was the wrong time for Keith, but just so many things happened, so many circumstantial things happened that started to unravel for him a little bit, which is a real shame, because I think had we have perhaps even not been in a COVID situation and gone up via the playoffs without COVID, I think it might have been a bit different for him.
Well, I don't think we'd have made the playoffs without COVID, though.
Another valid point, well made.
It's a whole different argument.
It's Callum Morton single-handedly taking us to the playoffs as well.
Yeah.
I mean, look, this is a very good point. This is the one thing that I'd like to see us at least attempt to do. Is play through the midfield. Mark Josiah. We have some decent ball players. He's right. You know, we do. I mean, you look at it and you've got Bryn Morris, who's got a really good pass on him. You've got players that have got the ability to look up and pick a pass. The one thing that I will maybe say with it is that I wouldn't expect to see a completely different, you know, style of play, completely and utterly different side on Saturday. Just simply because I don't think there's enough time between now and then for Brady and co, or the Brady bunch, as Neil nicknamed them earlier, and I'm sure many other people would have done as well. I don't think there's enough time for them to basically implement anything particular that will radically transform overnight what we do.
I don't think... Sorry, Charles.
I'm just going to say I'd like to see them just get the ball down a little bit more and ask the players to actually, you know, think about it before you hoof it.
Yeah, just.
I think that's all it is. Yeah.
Try and pass it to someone in a claret shirt.
Yeah,
that'd be great. Yeah,
you don't have to lump it towards bloody Chevys or whatever it is now.
That's the difference between last year and this year. You had Dane Oliver as that focal point. You had Callum Morton just pegging it onto everything. You had something to aim at that they're aiming at. Now it's just bollocks.
It absolutely is
bollocks.
Our Lincoln fan friend Jake says that he thought that we were class against Lincoln, and it's a shame to see that we've not carried it on. I think Miller being injured has knocked you off your stride. He says he was your main threat that day. I mean, you are right, Jake. You know, Miller was our threat in that first 20-30 minutes, and when he went off, the tide definitely turned in that result. In that match, and then every other match since.
And before it, though, right?
Yeah, before it. Yeah,
that's the problem, isn't it?
Yeah.
But I don't think it's going to take a lot to tweak, though, Charles. I really don't. I think this idea that when you were saying, you know, they haven't got enough time to change it, I don't think it needs adjusting that much. I genuinely feel that they just need to be allowed to play. Because if you you don't stand, but if you sit and watch the game on iFollow, all you hear or heard was Keith screaming at them all the time. And it's like, I don't think they've got any freedom to actually just go and play. And like Hoskins the other night, I mean, look, he polarizes the fan base, right? But a ball dropped to him in midfield and he literally just didn't know what to do with it. That's not Sam Hoskins. I think once those shackles are off, all they've got to say is just play. And then it might just click into place. And that, I think, will be a shame for Keith if it does, but equally will show what the problem was. I think it's there. I really think it's there.
I just want to pick up this comment from Phil Kirby, who was saying that if we hadn't trained on the pitch, we wouldn't be playing Route 1 football. My only question, therefore, is, well, what about the away games?
Also, did you see the state of Peterborough's pitch last night?
I didn't, because I don't tend to watch Peterborough United. Because
I chose to. I didn't choose to watch them. Obviously, I saw a clip on Twitter, and it was horrendous. It was as bad, if not worse, than ours, and still managed to play football on it, I'm sure. So,
do you know that pitch has never been that good? I don't think London Roads. But
no, it feels. He's
Phil.
Fair enough. Fair.
You're forgiven, Phil.
Let you off there. Gareth here saying that, Gareth saying that Scott Pollock will come back and save us. Matthew Crane makes a point, mix it up. If you've got to go long, do it, but always look for a short pass if available. Players should always have a minimum of 2 options when on the ball.
I get so much enjoyment from, someone called Crane saying mix it up as well. So there's little things that make me...
Absolutely. Well, look, we've been going for an hour and a half. I think it is probably time that we called it for the night. Before we go, I just want to say thank you very much for watching or listening, depending on what it is you're doing. This will be out as a podcast, probably on Friday, maybe tomorrow if I'm quick about it. But thank you very much. Thank you very much for all your support. I'd just like to point out, actually, that when we first started this, I think our second episode was an interview with James Hennigan of the Cron, which was basically the second episode was straight after the first, obviously. But in between,
Content got better.
In between, Dean Austin was sacked. So it kind of feels like we've gone full circle. We've had our first full-length managerial reign as a podcast. So thank you very much for being here for the entire Keith Curle years. And hopefully you will follow us and keep listening to us all the way through for the years to come. It would be remiss of me to say, or to not say rather, that we do have a Patreon if you want to support us. Starts from as little as £2 a month, where you'll get access to our Slack channel, which is basically just a online community. Like-minded fans can get together, have a bit of chat, have a bit of fun, especially on a match day. It's always quite fun in there, and it will be really, really, really fun to see you in there. And then there's loads of other stuff as well that you can sign up for too. So thank you very much. If you already do support us on Patreon, thank you. If you're going to sign up now, that would be great. And we'll be back for definite next Tuesday for our usual podcast. Thanks very much. Make sure that you go and give everybody a pat on the back for getting through an hour and a half of us talking. Cheers. We'll see you next time. See you later. Bye-bye.
Bye.
See you later. Bye.